Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, hi, I'm Bree. I garden in Kansas Zone 7A, and today I'm going to give you a tour of my backyard garden here in the month of May. My goal is to grow as much food as I possibly can on less than 2,000 square feet, and every month I walk you guys through the garden and kind of explain what I'm dealing with, what I'm harvesting, and just the changes throughout the garden. Today I'm going to walk you guys through and kind of show you the starting point. I actually officially have the first round of the garden fully planted, and I'll be doing a few different successions throughout the year. Our first big wave of things coming out of the garden will be beginning of June. Harvesting a few things here and there like spinach and lettuce at the moment, but really we are just kind of getting started. I'm actually a little bit ahead compared to previous seasons, but with that being said, let's go ahead and just jump into the 2025 year. So let's talk about the in-ground space first, because this is where all of my cool weather crops are. So I am growing the Bellstar broccoli again. I want to say this is the third season. It could be the fourth, but I am now starting to not remember how many seasons I've grown certain things. So the Bellstar is a tried and true for me. I really like it. For me, I always have had issues with other broccoli varieties bolting on me because we just have up and down dips with our temperatures, and that can cause a lot of stress. One thing I'm actually really excited about is my spinach. There is a variety I found. It's the butterfly spinach, and it's supposed to be more bolt resistant. And so far it's been doing well. I've had my other variety that I have growing right here already bolt on 2 plants, and I always have issues growing spinach as well. It's one of those things. Cool weather crops for me can go one or two ways. April was kind of one of those months where we were just kind of up and down. We had some days in the 80s. We had a few other days that were 50s, high 40s. So you can kind of see how much our weather really fluctuates. The Bellstar is more stress resistant, and I have found that to be very tried and true. Typically I'm harvesting that end of May, beginning of June. So we are really gearing up on the broccoli. I also have some collards. We have romaine lettuce, and then I also have cabbage, and then all of my breadseed poppies. So this year I'm adding a lot of different varieties. I have 15 new varieties of different things I've either not grown or just different kinds of things I've grown in the past, but I'm really excited about the poppies. They're breadseed poppies, and last year was my first year growing breadseed poppies, and I really liked them for poppy seed bread. So this year I have a blue Hungarian, and I also have one called pepper box mix, I believe it is. They look really, really pretty, so I'm really excited about those. I really loved having breadseed poppies last year. I don't remember what type of cabbage that is, but I also grow Paris Island romaine. That's another tried and true for me. I really, really like it. And as you can see here, it's really starting to look really, really good. We're starting to get heads of it. I have harvested some of the bottom leaves at this point, but we are going to be doing all things salad over the next few weeks. Most of this stuff will be out of the garden come June, and this is a really tricky spot for me to plant during midsummer because it shades out, but I can typically get a second wave of cool weather crops in this same space. So I'm planning on just planting it out a few times with cool weather crops. I haven't found too many other things to do too well over here. So the other thing I have over here in the grow bags is a bean called the Red Moon Hyacinth bean, and I'm really excited about this. So this is not an edible bean. They look beautiful, and they're supposed to attract a lot of pollinators. So I'm really excited to have that on the A-frame over here. I think that will do pretty well. At least that is the plan. Okay guys, so here is all of the garlic. I grew a little bit more garlic this year than the previous year, but I am so excited with how this is looking. This will actually be one of our first really big harvests of this season in just 4 weeks. Here in probably a week and a half, I'm gonna start seeing scapes appear, and typically my harvest date is toward the end of the first week of June. There has been a few seasons that have gone into that second week of June, but for the most part, I've been averaging that first week of June. I am so excited. So I believe this is my soft neck variety. I have Russian red over here. Oh no, I have Russian red over here. So this would be Italian purple, Russian red. I have Georgian fire, and then Chestnut red. So Chestnut red is my tried and true favorite variety. If you have to pick one variety of garlic to grow, pick Chestnut Red. You'll be looking at the fall to grow garlic. So if you're interested in growing your own garlic, which I highly suggest, look into getting it in September or October. I typically plant at the end of October, but my seed garlic typically shows up at my house that first week of October when I order. It's one of the easiest things I found to grow, and it's so much fun to have a really big harvest at the beginning of the season, and this is so much fun. I grow a year's worth of garlic. This last year I have definitely got my year's worth. I have about 1.5 pints worth left of garlic powder, and I was able to get my soft neck variety, this Ischium Red, to store in my basement until I think it was about mid-January, and at that point I went ahead and processed it because it was starting to sprout. But that is the longest I've ever kept like actual heads of garlic in my basement. So I've been really liking the soft neck variety. So last year was my first year growing soft neck, and I grew it again. I grew more this year because I really enjoyed braiding it. But they also don't send up the scape like I just mentioned. So garlic scapes will show up here in about a week, week and a half, and at that point I'll pick them, I'll rip them off. The scape is just what the hard neck variety's flower bulb is, and when you pick that, it's supposed to give you a bigger bulb. At least that's what has been said. But the garlic will be one of those really big first harvests, and I know broccoli's right around there, but you will see I have a big area of the garden that will be cleared the first week of June, and I'm still debating on exactly what I want to do with this. I'm pretty sure this is going to be corn or okra. I don't know if I really am set on planting corn here just because it's the front of the garden, but you might also be able to see we added 3 arches here. So last year I had an arch here and an arch here, and one thing we did this year was we added, was it 2? No, we added 3 more arches because we added to our Trellis Tunnel, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I have these 3 arches here, and I really want those to be the highlight. And if I put corn here, I think the corn will just be a little too tall, but I think this would also be a really good spot for corn. So I really have to make those decisions really soon, because in 4 weeks we are going to be turning this whole area into something else. Another thing I ended up doing this year was upgrade a lot of my pots. We had a lot of grow bags. I really just wanted to have nicer looking pots, but I have different zinnias up here as well. I'm growing the ballerina and the Cinderella, which I think looks so pretty. I'm really, really excited about my different flower varieties this year and the color scheme I went with. It's a little bit more pink and pastels versus a lot more sunset colors that I've done the last few years. We have chamomile already blooming. The chamomile ends up being one of these volunteers that I have every single year, and I have it growing in multiple spots. I typically don't have to plant it. It self-seeds itself in random areas. Another thing that has been really exciting is I have so many sunflowers that have volunteered themselves. I'm pretty positive that these 2 are goldies, which I'm really excited about. I have lavender popping up. We have sage, parsley. This is a few more poppies. We have parsley, mint, some cosmos. I don't know what this is. I actually got this plant at an estate auction, and I never switched it out just because I liked how it looked in this cute little pot. So if anyone knows what this is, please let me know. And then also over here in my pot area in the front, I have a paprika plant that I overwintered. It did get a little bit burnt by my grow lights downstairs, and I do need to prune all of that off. But as you can see, I do have some red peppers on here, and then I have some really, really pretty peppers that are growing currently, which I am really excited about this. When I was cleaning out the garden in October, one thing I did was I pruned all the foliage off of this plant and potted it in this pot, and I just let it stay under my grow lights all winter. And I must say, I am now addicted, and I want to overwinter a few. I think it would be really nice to at least overwinter a serrano or a jalapeno and also a paprika. So very, very excited about that. I'm really happy that it was successful, but I do need to clean up that plant a little bit. So speaking of peppers, I have a few of the snacking pepper varieties over here and bell peppers as well. And then I have some more zinnias and cosmos over here. Okay, so my triple trellis area is one I'm pretty excited about. I'm really hoping I don't regret my decision, but we will see. So a few years back, I did not grow these last year, but I grew them 2 years back to back, was the honey nut squash. I'm going to grow those again. I really liked them, and I kind of missed not having them last year. So the honey nut squash is more vine wort resistant, and I've had very good success with it. I still do have squash bug problems though, so I'm really hoping I just don't have bad squash bug problem this year, because not only did I plant the honey nut squash here, on this trellis I planted a pumpkin, and I have never been successful at pumpkins, but I recently found a pumpkin variety that's supposed to be more vine borer resistant, and people say they've had good success with them, and is the Long Island cheese pumpkin. So really hoping we are successful with those. I expect that we'll have squash bug problems, but I did plant marigolds over here and also some nasturtiums, which both of those are supposed to help. I have had toss-up answers when I asked you guys if you have used marigolds to kind of help with squash bugs, and some of you guys said it helped, some of you guys say it didn't help. So I think it really also just depends on your garden and your area on how much pressure you truly do see. So we will see on that. And then on this final trellis over here, we have my Howell's Jumbo Cantaloupe, which I also planted another area over on my Trellis Tunnel. That is also it. I put two different ways of the Howell's Jumbo. Last year was such a good cantaloupe year, and honestly, we could just use more cantaloupe. Okay, so also over here, I am growing a new sunflower. So I have these teddy bear sunflowers. They're supposed to be like the Goldie honey bears, but they're supposed to be shorter. So they're supposed to be 3 feet in height. So I lined the front of these two beds here. So that's kind of like the main entrance. This middle trellis will kind of be like the highlight point. I really try to make this front space just kind of coordinate and be symmetrical and be the highlight of the garden. I have a little bit more fun with the trellises and flowers and just making things look pretty. But then also we have different zinnias and cosmos. I have some dahlias over here, and then I also have some blueberries, but nothing too exciting. I also have different perennials, yarrow and echinacea around my bird bath. Which, speaking of bird baths, okay, so I recently got this comment on how to deter birds if birds are going after your tomatoes. And this is one reason why I put the bird bath up. So literally, I have not had a single issue with a bird. I still have issues with squirrels, but not birds with the bird bath. So I randomly stumbled upon this article that explained typically when birds are pecking at your tomatoes, it's because they're thirsty. So I would randomly have tomatoes that would be pecked at, or like kind of pecked out a little bit and then kind of left behind. And I have not had that issue since putting the bird bath. I swear that has been one of those things. But anyway, this is one of those areas that is new. So we've been working really hard on trying to figure out how to maximize this space just a little bit more. Every single year I garden, I try to just figure out what could I possibly do a little bit different to just utilize my space a little bit better. And this back corner is one of those that I feel like I haven't used to the best of my ability over the last few years. This is where I had my compost pile. And last year I got rid of the compost pile and I put a bunch of the grow bags, but really the grow bags weren't maximizing the space either. So I really wanted to figure out exactly what I could do. And that is why we put a 16 by 11 foot L over here. And I have to say, I am really, really excited about this area. It doesn't get the best morning sun when it comes to the back, but it gets enough sun where this should do really well. I have tomatillos over here. I have all of my romas over here, and then I have all of my jalapenos. So I am really, really excited about this area. This was the big project for us in April. I have some cleanup still I need to do, but then we have the rest of the peppers and the tomatoes. So as far as peppers go, we have serranos and cayennes. All of our paprikas are lined here. And then I have a variety of different bells. So I'm growing 3 different varieties of bells. I'm growing the red pepper I grew previously, which I can't remember the name of. But then I have an Elsa, which is yellow, and then a Cuba orange, which is an orange one. And that is what is all over here. And then you can see I have another volunteer chamomile over here as well. And then for our tomatoes, I have all of my snapdragons over here, which let's actually go over here real quick. So I had snapdragons over here last year, and these are volunteers from last year, which I'm gonna go ahead and pull that one a little bit because I want to space them a little bit. But this is the early sunrise mix, and then the new one I grew this year. oh, why am I drawing a blank? It's Cane's Orange 2-3, I believe it's called. It's a little bit more lighter pastel-like colors that I felt like went really well with the zinnias. So I'm really excited about just the color wave of flowers I have this year. But then as far as tomatoes over here go, I have all Inca Jewels, then majority Supremo, and then I have I think 2 Romas at the very end. And I really like the Incas and the Supremos because they're a little bit more compact of a determinate variety versus a Roma. I feel like the Romas still get a little bit big, but these Incas and the Supremos act really similar. This will be my 2nd year for the Incas, and this will be my 3rd year for the Supremos. They're just a little bit more compact. They put on a ton of fruit, and I have just really enjoyed those varieties. All right, guys, Trellis Ellis 2.0. This is my Trellis Tunnel, and of course, I am growing loofah. One thing that was weird about the planting out of loofah is I actually had one of my plants completely die. So this is why I tell you guys, always have a few backups. You never know. I have always had like a random 1 or 2 plants just not do the transition period well. So it's really nice to have like an extra plant to plug in. So I have 2 loofahs here, and then I lined this bed with Seychelles green beans again. I grew those last year. I really loved this combination on the trellis. And then I'm also growing red noodle beans, which is a new one for me this year. Red noodle beans are kind of cool. I'm really excited about them. They're supposed to be really good in stir fries, and they get to be about 12 to 24 inches long. So really excited about that. I've never grown them. If you've grown them, please let me know how you like to prepare them. And then I also have some peas over there, which I can't remember what my pea variety is. So like I mentioned earlier, this trellis tunnel used to be 20 feet long, and now it's 28 feet long. And I was able to put a lot more on this tunnel. So at the very end, I planted Cucuzi gourd, which is supposed to be a gourd variety, obviously, like the loofah gourd, but it's supposed to be a lot more like a zucchini. Even though I found loofah to be like a zucchini, the Cucuzi is supposed to be a little bit more tender, I believe. I don't know, don't count me on that. It's a new one for me. But I put Cucuzi down here. I planted a few more green beans, but I also did cucumbers and also that second wave of cantaloupe. So I'm really excited to see how this really fills out this year. I'm really excited about having an extra 8 feet of tunnel. I feel like I'm just kind of walking for a while. This is one of those spaces that will be really different come the next 4 to 6 weeks. This will put on a lot of growth. Honestly, the next 4 to 6 weeks are huge for the garden. As we start to really warm up, a lot of these plants really take off, and you will be shocked on how much this space changes in just 4 weeks. Okay, so this is one of those areas I'm currently experimenting with. This is a wind block I created with my little hoops and some solar plastic because I had issues with my onions last year, and I'm pretty sure it's because of wind damage. So I had some of the most beautiful onions I have ever grown, and once it came to curing, come week 4, I was using these onions while they were curing during that 4-week process of curing. Week 4, almost all of them molded out, and I've never had that problem before. When I was doing a little bit more research on it, I think it's because of how much breakage I had on the onion greens, and then we had a really wet spring into early summer, and I think that ended up causing like fungal issues to end up happening that really didn't come to surface until I was curing them. I have successfully cured onions in the past, but this was one of those things. I wanted to create the wind block. I find onion greens to be one of those things that break a lot easier versus a garlic. They're more hollow, and I just had a lot of breakage last year. So this is my plan for that. And then I also like this idea because last year when it came to that final 2 weeks of onions, I typically like to pull water back completely because they really need to start drying out before you start to do the curing process and store them away. But we had rain all the time, and it was really hard for the soil to get dry. So if we end up having a rainy end of spring, early summer, when these things are bulbing up and starting to flop over and be mature, I could just cover up the top and hopefully block out some of that rain coming into the soil. So I am really loving this. I have these clips from Bootstrap Farmer that are holding the plastic on, and this has just worked really well so far. Honestly, the onions look really good. I do need to take this off off and weed a little bit. I have taken it off a few times just to be able to weed and grab in here a little bit easier. But so far, so good. This is one of those things I am really, really excited about, and it's been working really well so far. I moved my strawberries over here. The strawberries were where the garlic is closest to us last year, and I've just done a lot of rearranging this year. That way I could really practice crop rotation a little bit, especially with the alliums, with the garlic and the onions. They're in completely different corners of the yard than they were last year. So I'm really liking the layout of how everything came together this year. But we can't forget about the corner over here. We have my first iris bloom, which I am so excited about. I was gifted these irises last year and I have never seen them bloom, nor have I ever had irises. So they are just starting to bloom. I only have one bloom, but I'm sure tomorrow I might have a few more peek out. And then I threw a few more poppies over here, but then I have my other elderberry over here, which I don't know if I showed you guys the other one. This one is actually blooming, which I think I'm gonna play around with some elderflower recipes because currently my other one isn't fully blooming quite yet, so I don't think they will cross-pollinate, and I need these to cross-pollinate to get berries. But this smells absolutely amazing. I wish you guys could smell it through the screen. This is an elderberry plant called Instant Karma, and I love the variegation on it. I think it's so, so beautiful. But this thing doubled in size compared to last year. I want to say this is my second year officially having it. I think I planted it in the fall 2 years ago, but it smells so, so good. And you can see I have so many more blooms starting to pop up. Here is the third area we added. This is a 4x4 garden bed. We ended up having a little bit of extra wood when we got the wood for the L over there. So we made this little 4x4. So I was able to actually plant potatoes. This was something I was not planning for. I was excited because I ended up finding a blight resistant potato. This is the Elba. I have not grown the Elba before. I've grown the Kennebec and have had really good success with the Kennebec with it being blight resistant. There was one year I grew Gold Rush and it isn't blight resistant. I had terrible luck. They got completely bombarded by blight. And I typically have blight issues anyway, so I like to find a blight resistant variety, and those were on sale. I think they're still on sale at the moment. So if you're watching this video like within like days of me posting it, you might be able to get a sale on them. I got them at High Mowing Organics, and I think they're like 30% off at the moment, and they barely had any eyelets on them. But I was able to put 2.5 pounds of potatoes in here. We'll see how much I get out of this. I'm really excited. This area really didn't see a lot of sun. We had a dead tree that got cut down, and now this corner is getting a lot more sun. But another thing I'm really excited about with this area is I have a ton of volunteer sunflowers over here. So I don't know if you guys recall or not, I had a bunch of those wild sunflowers last year that popped up, and I did not know they were wild sunflowers. I just thought they were some of my goldies, and they ended up being these ginormous, like 12 to 13 feet wild sunflowers that had hundreds of blooms on them, and they were really hard to kind of figure out when they were going to seed because the seeds were so small, and there was just so many blooms on them to where once I felt like they were starting to probably go to seed, I was cutting them down and throwing them over here. I let the chickens kind of have at them, but I have so many of them popping up, and I'm really excited that they're popping up all in this back corner because I think it will be one of those things that might give me a little bit of extra privacy in the summer months. And then along this back fence over here, I just planted a bunch of Mongolian giants, so we'll see if those pop up or not. All right, well, that is what the garden is looking like here at the beginning of May. We are just really kicking off the season, and I'm really excited to take you guys along for 2025. We haven't harvested too much yet, just some spinach, lettuce, chamomile, mint, things like that, but we are going to be gearing up for some harvest here just very shortly. I am so excited to take you guys along. I hope you enjoyed seeing the garden today, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye.